boss, in fact.
That's right, that's right.
So I have a hard time understanding why it's only the men that speak for Islam and are sitting near the front of the room, and the women are in the back. So
You know who I look at as my spiritual boss in this room?
it's-
Is the gentleman who did not speak, with the white beard over there. I have learned more spiritual stuff from him than anyone else. Now, that's regardless of whether he's man or woman. But there's a difference between, I mean, if you can, I forget which verse it is in the Bible, but it says more strictly about women speaking up. So there's different roles sometimes, that we take. Some of us are better at doing certain things than others, and some of us are busier because we're either assigning ourselves to certain roles or have been assigned to certain roles, and therefore we are not available for the other roles. So there are certain roles. It's not a question of rank. There's a difference between role and rank. So we have different roles, but not different ranks. The Prophet Muhammad not only was, served a woman who was his boss, but he was also raised by a single mother named Amina, right, in the beginning. She was the only one there. And then after her, he was raised by Halima, who was a wet nurse, adopted for him. The question of the role of women comes up often. There are some things that are relatively difficult for women to do. And that's not just speaking. When it comes to speaking in conferences, many of us have listened to many women speakers. Many of the women who are here spoke, and I've listened to them. They organized this event. Right now it's organized by women. I've been called by women to speak, right? So if the woman calls me to speak and I say no, then I'll be disobeying women, right? So in a way, women are our bosses right now. I was called by a woman to say, we have this event going on and would like you to speak. So I reluctantly accepted because I thought there were better people than me who could do it. But when it comes to leadership, that's the question that is often asked, and it's linked to the leadership of the community. As for example, no caliph was ever a woman, just like no American president was ever a woman, right? But that's for a different reason, and I can go into some reasons that would then have to make me have to take off the Ahmadiyya hat and talk about general stuff, which I'm not going to do now, right? But there are some roles, for example, the person who is leading a religious community sometimes leads prayers as well. And there are some, without going into absolute details there are some differences between women and men, as we all know. Some of them are biological, during which time sometimes women keep themselves from certain intense activities, right, of spiritual activities. And during those times, leadership of prayer is not seen as the most appropriate thing for them to do. There's another thing, which is the commandment of God. And when God tells us to do something, there are reasons behind that. So speaking is not prohibited. If you know, some Muslim countries have had, well, even though we criticize them as being bad Muslims for some other aspects like the ISIS and those things, they have some good qualities, right? So we've had prime ministers, heads of states that were women in Muslim countries. We haven't had one yet in this country, which is called a Judeo-Christian country, right? And maybe Mrs. Clinton is coming closest to being one, but we don't know how far she'll go, because already I'm not going to go into politics right now. So, but Benazir Bhutto, people talk about, right? Nobel laureate recently, young woman, right? We had Bangladesh and India, which has a greater population of Muslims than many Muslim countries, so-called, right, have had female leaders. So leadership is not, and speaking is not the only thing. It's never prohibited. In fact, Aisha, who was the wife, one of the wives of the Prophet Muhammad, was one of the biggest teachers of Islam. Many of some of which he quoted, called ahadith, or traditions, sayings of the Prophet, were narrated by Aisha and explained to the Muslim people. There were Muslim warriors. There's one incident that is mentioned, I'm taking too long, I'm going to stop quick. There was a time when the Prophet, there was a Muslim army that was fighting against, and very valiantly against the enemy that had come and attacked. And there was one Muslim soldier, which was about whom there was talk. This soldier is just amazing, just keeps defeating the enemy, just goes and wipes out a large number of enemies and enemy horses. We wonder who this guy is, right? And the commander of the Muslim army said, "Come here, I want to see your face. Take off that veil. I want to see who you are. What a wonderful gentleman you are, that you're fighting so bravely." And the answer was a high-pitched voice that says, "I'm sorry, I can't. I'm a woman. My name is Khawla," you know. So women have had all kinds of roles in leadership. But there are certain areas of spirituality, for example, where a woman does not lead prayer, for example, when men are behind her. And it creates an awkward situation, especially due to biological differences and what some people call segregation. We say assigning roles to people. And we have our wonderful scholar, Mr. Abid Hanif, who can throw more light on this.
Dr. Kash, if you want to chime in, or anyone else from the front. Let me introduce Dr. Amr Malik. He's the president of the Boston chapter of the Ahmadi Muslim community.
I just wanted to thank everybody for coming. That's very kind of you. It's a time when it's a very difficult time for Islam. With all the misinformation. I hope today's event was useful, helpful, shed some light on it. I actually also wanted to address that question about women. Why are there no women speakers there? Very simple question. The answer is also actually very simple. It's out of respect. Now, we have segregation in Islam. The women and the men are segregated. And the women we do have speakers. We have national leadership. We have all, and if there were women speaking, we'd have a women audience. So generally our women, out of respect for the women, they wouldn't, they do have speeches and they'll do it. And sometimes, senior women might come and speak, that's fine. But it's really because of the segregation of the sexes. Now, why is there segregation? That's a separate question which I'm happy to address. Does that answer your question? I think between the two.
Right.
If there are any other further questions, please.
It's an open floor. So if there's any other questions.
How is this struggle going to be accomplished through ideology?
All right. Thank you so much for that question. It's already being accomplished. As I said, the Ahmadiyya Muslim community started in 1889. How many years has it been? 126? Started with one man. We have tens of millions of people in the world who are Ahmadis. If you put in Google fastest growing faith group or fastest growing sect, you'll see Ahmadiyya Muslim community will come up. And this is not like data from the Ahmadiyya Muslim community, but independent research. So this is already the fastest growing message within the Muslim world. The Ahmadiyya Muslim community's message is the fastest growing message. And how we're winning is by winning hearts of people. We're winning other Muslim communities. They're joining the Ahmadiyya Muslim community. We have, like I said, a unified leadership, a Khalifa. We have a 24/7 TV channel. Actually, we have multiple TV channels now. We have the internet. We have a lot of means to get in touch with our community members and keep them focused on this fight. And we are already winning, like I said. It's the numbers are showing that we are the fastest growing faith group. And I don't think you can quote another example of a group that has grown from one man to tens of millions in just 100 years within Islam. And look at ISIS. What is ISIS's number? You see them on the TV all the time. They're 32,000 people. Taliban and Boko Haram are even feared. So these people represent like 0.0003% of the Muslim world. And the Ahmadiyya Muslim community is somewhere between 1 and 2%. A minority community within the larger Muslim world, however, when it comes to Muslim community, it's the single largest Muslim community that is unified under one leader. Does that answer your question?
I just want to add something to that. I want to, without being too emotional, I want to share my beef I have with the media. I'm sorry if there's media here, then you're the good ones, right? You hear the media a lot about caliph. I mean, I'm surprised that you guys, well, that's because you answered the question through them, right? That you don't watch Fox News. There's so much made of this buffoon who's their caliph, right? Khalifa. And all media outlets are just showing him all the time standing in that balcony and waving his hand like that and saying, making him almost look good, sort of, right? Which hurts, right? But here we have a Khalifa, a true caliph, who's directing wonderful projects like the Muslims for Life that I told you, Humanity First that I told you, right? Muslims for Loyalty project, right? And we're doing so much good for humanity. And this caliph is not mentioned by the media outlets here and there. Only occasionally now they've started to cover him somewhat in Europe. But American media is virtually, his mention is non-existent. Once I remember, you remember the old guy, Larry King Live? Oh, young compared to some of us, right? Some of us look older than him. He was once asked the question, I was so shocked and surprised about the Ahmadiyya Muslim community. And he completely ignored that question. It was a caller who called, right, about the Ahmadiyya Muslim community. He completely ignored the question. I'm like, how could that question disappear through thin air? Where is the media? Why is the media not covering our movement? It almost seems deliberate to me. Again, I'm getting emotional. I told you I was going to try to not get emotional, but there is almost a deliberate attempt by the media to ignore this community. But that's another sign of the truthfulness. It's a testament to the veracity of this community's claim that they're being ignored deliberately by the so-called, establishment. But these are the peaceful insurgencies that win eventually. When Christianity came, some of you may have affiliation with Christianity and might know the history of Christianity. When Christianity came, how many people were there associated with Jesus up to his death? I put that in inverted quotes because it wasn't really his death according to us. 33 years is old is when he died, right? 12 people, 12, his disciples. And among those 12, one of them betrayed him. That was the situation, right? Pretty meek, pretty miserable, some people would say. And it went on and on like that, even after his passing. Well, we say passing on to another land because we don't believe in the physical death of Jesus on the cross. We believe he was, being the pious person that he was saved, but that's a different topic. Jesus had very few followers even after his passing, and Christianity was insignificant in the world up to 306 years. The 307th year comes, and Christianity dominates. Could that phenomenon be happening to our community? We've actually dominated far more than Christianity had, and the difference is not even if you factor in the advancement of technology. The rise of Ahmadiyya and the peaceful rise of Ahmadiyya is far more outweighs how Christianity. We are a Messianic movement too, right? We believe in the Messiah who came to fulfill the mission of Muhammad, just like the previous Messiah, Jesus, came to fulfill the mission of Moses, right? So we're a Messianic movement. It starts gradually. It starts peacefully. If we had a sword and we killed a few people, we'll be all over the media, all right? I see news on this gentleman's chest. He'd have my picture over there because I had a sword in my hand. Now I'm just talking, right? So one of the things is the eclipse, you see, that has to go away. And it will eventually. Because people like yourselves are going to talk. And when you talk to your fellow people, that look, not all of them are bad. We saw some that were pretty peaceful. They talked to us gently. One man was getting a little emotional, but that was just not a violent emotion. He wasn't angry. He was just explaining things and getting a little enthusiastic about it. But they're nice people, so they're not all bad. So as the message spreads, eventually the media will be forced to cover us. So we've got to do it together. Because this is a common cause. It's not just a Muslim cause. It's a Christian cause. It's a Jewish cause. It's a cause of all good humanity together. We can get it done.
Please.
Yes, I was wondering if anyone had any thoughts or wanted to share where the Quran so specifically talks about killing one is like killing thousands, and so against the killings, why there seems to be, regardless of ISIS, who we don't even consider that they're really following the Quran, but there's so much between the different, the Shia and the Sunni in many different countries where different, I don't know, what you would call as a parish for a Christian, I don't know what you would call the group, but why there's so much would profess and violently go after other Muslim groups like the Sunni to the Shia, and like you mentioned in Pakistan, or whoever I talked about, the going after your
Yeah, community.
group. So I don't know if anyone has thoughts on that, why that seems to be such a, it's not like a one or two, it seems to be pretty prevalent, and I just don't know if you have any thoughts as why that.
Sure.
And some of those groups are reading the Quran.
Right. So I think if you look back a few hundred years, same thing happened in the Christian world. There were many Christian communities that were fighting other Christian communities, just because they thought differently, just because they believed differently. So right now, I think the Muslim world is passing through that same age, that same transformation. And so there are different Muslim communities who disagree with one another on theology. So there are Sunnis, and even within the Sunni community, there are different sects within the Sunni community who disagree with one another. Then there's the Shia sect, and of course the Ahmadiyya sect. And like I said, some people take these differences to such an extent that they consider the other Muslim community apostate. And then, because they believe within their community that apostates are sinful and should be punished, they attack those communities. Which is why the Ahmadiyya Muslim community is attacked so much across the Muslim world. In Pakistan, actually the government has appeased these extremist people. If I call myself a Muslim in Pakistan, I can be jailed for 3 years. So these differences are just taken to an extent where they're just like insanely crazy. I mean, but again, like I said, this happened within the Christian world as well, and you know about the history very well. So it's the same thing that's happening in the Muslim world right now. There's nothing in the Quran that says that we should do this. It's just political. It's just a difference of opinion that people don't tolerate. It's intolerance, extremism, and then these wrong concepts about punishing heretics and apostates that some extremist clergy follow. But like I said, the Prophet Muhammad said this would exactly happen. Nothing will remain of Islam but its name. You're seeing that. Does that answer your question? Thank you.
Yeah, I would just add, sir, I would just add, it's human nature. You see, with every religion, if you look at it, the purity is at the beginning. So as time goes by, it deteriorates. You see, so any religion that you see, you'll see many sects after a period of time. Why are there so many sects? The message was one. Moses preached one message, Jesus preached one message. So why are there so many sects? Look at what happened to the history of Christianity between Protestants and Catholics. I mean, that was a very bloody affair. What they did to the Protestants like in France, it's really shameful, really, really terrible. And it's, similar to the Catholics in Protestant England. It's just littered. It's just human nature. The human nature, unfortunately, deteriorates over time. So I think that's the same thing in Islam.
And in answer to the first part of your question, in chapter 5, verse 32 to 33 is a reference for if someone takes the life of one person, it's like they took the life of all of mankind. And if he saves one life, it's like you saved all of mankind as well. So that's in chapter 5 of the Holy Quran. One more question back there.
I came in a little late, so perhaps you touched on the subject. What is Sharia law, and why do some communities, Muslim communities in the United States, demand to be subject to that law?
Sure. Thank you for that interesting question. So Sharia basically means code of conduct. Muslims impose a code upon themselves to live their lives. So, for example, when I'm speaking to you gently, that's an Islamic teaching. When I respect my parents, that's an Islamic teaching. When I serve women, when I serve humanity, when I do anything good, I am following the teachings of Islam, and this is all encompassed within Sharia. Sharia is how you live your life as a Muslim. Now, some people have incorporated certain other aspects into Sharia as well. For example, like I said, apostasy laws and blasphemy laws are not Islamic at all. And I've shown you from the teachings of the Holy Quran. And I can argue with anyone here in a debate about whether they are Islamic or not. They simply aren't. There's nothing to show that apostasy or blasphemy laws are Islamic at all, by far. So whatever you are hearing is Sharia law, as implemented by Saudi Arabia or any other country, be it Sudan or Iran, is not Islamic at all. Sharia law is just how you live your life. Sharia is basically living your life obeying the teachings of Islam. I said, when you're kind to your parents, when you talk to other people gently, when you treat people well, this is all Sharia. And one important thing about Sharia is that it cannot be imposed on people. That is an important aspect of Sharia you have to understand. Freedom of conscience is an important aspect of Sharia in Islam. You cannot impose Sharia on a non-Muslim. Sharia is something that's supposed to be imposed upon oneself. It's something that I have to live by, I have to impose on my own self. It's not something that I have to go about imposing on other people. That is not Sharia at all. So what you find as Sharia, and of course as it's touted on Fox News all the time, is not Islamic at all. These are just repressive laws, these are extremist laws, these are extremist policies by extremist countries. They are not Islamic at all, they have no credence in the Holy Quran. All right?
I just want to say a couple of things about that you mentioned. I don't know if everybody's familiar with these. You could do it too. He mentioned apostasy law, and he also mentioned blasphemy law, right? We know what these words mean. Apostasy means to leave one's faith and go adopt another faith or just leave faith altogether. And what's the other word? Blasphemy. Blasphemy means you say something derogatory about the Lord or spiritual being or something. So the background to this is that Muslim countries, we should say, which are said to have Sharia law, Sharia interpretation could be so many. As he mentioned, the main three schools of thought that are now talked about, there are many more, but three main are Sunni, Shia, Ahmadi, right? We Ahmadi. So whose Sharia are you going to adopt? This jurisprudence, Muslim law, cannot be universally applied if the in charge is Shia. They will apply their laws. And if the in charge is Sunni, they'll say, well, the law will be Sunni law. A constitution will be based on Sunni law. And if we we will not say that because we do not believe that. That's why we believe in secular government. We have absolutely, this should be clear to you. Our community, Ahmadiyya Muslim community, has stated this many times. We have absolutely no political goals, desires. We are completely separate from that. We're a spiritual movement. And when you mix the two together, we believe in separation of mosque and state. All right, you've heard of church and state. We do not believe that spiritual leadership should control the affairs of the country in mundane matters. The mundane matters should be controlled by whatever the law of the land is. If it is based on faith, during the time of the Prophet Muhammad, what kind of laws were applied? He was a Muslim, right? Obviously his followers were Muslim. He eventually got leadership. What if a Jew or a Christian was convicted in a crime? Did he punish them according to Muslim law? No. He made a decision based on Jewish law if the person was Jewish, was convicted of a crime. If a Christian was convicted of a crime, it was according to the Christian jurisprudence that case was treated. So what is happening now in certain places such as Pakistan especially, a place I escaped from. Otherwise there were actual death threats against my person. I wasn't that prominent, but I don't know why they came after me. And like he said, if you say there that I'm a Muslim, we wouldn't be able to hold this conference in Pakistan. The Ahmadiyya Muslim community will not be able to sponsor this event in Pakistan, especially him, the president of our community, and maybe a couple others of us, we the speakers, will be in jail, right? The penal code of Pakistan recommends a penalty of 3 years in jail, plus rigorous imprisonment, plus fine. That's the Sharia law that they have. So Pakistan made a law that is based on their, they call it Islamic Republic of Pakistan. But whose Sharia will you follow? So when they say Sharia law, they're usually talking about the extremist laws. That is not Islamic law. It is what is the interpretation of one group, whoever is in power, that they call Sharia law. And when Fox News says Sharia law, I think they just take it to mean something bad. I don't think they even know the meaning of the word Sharia. And I watch Fox News. I'm not saying this out of contempt or anything, right? Even Bill O, I watch him sometimes. But it's seen as a very negative thing when they say Sharia law, and for good reason, like he mentioned. So I just wanted to say what blasphemy law's background is. In Pakistan, the punishment is death. If you say something derogatory about, we do not think that if somebody should be punished that way. A woman, if you remember, a Christian woman in Pakistan said something allegedly said something derogatory about the Prophet Muhammad, and she was sentenced to death. I mean, what kind of Islam allows, what you heard today is completely in contrast to that. This is what they call Sharia law, and that's why there's so much repugnance associated with Sharia law, and we share that.
And just to add, I think the United States of America is a more Sharia compliant law, according to my vision,
That's right.
than Pakistan and Saudi Arabia.
I wanted to thank all of the questions from the audience as well as the speakers for answering them. Just in the interest of time, I think we'll bring the question and answer session to a close, but I was actually reminded by my wife that we have Come Meet a Muslim over refreshment, so please, any of these questions that you had, or a question about the status of women in Islam, she reminded me that, I think you'll be pleasantly surprised if you take a few minutes to actually talk to one of the female members of our membership to ask them what their candid experiences and what they feel their status is. Just coming to mind, there's a very high reverence given to females in Islam, and rights that were never given to them in the history of mankind were vouchsafed during the time of Prophet Muhammad. Rights to education, rights to own property, and these were things that only came about in the Western world very recently. The high status of women in terms of serving your mother as a source of attaining peace in the afterlife, and I'll end it with this: that the Prophet Muhammad said, "The best of you is the best. The best of you is the one who looks after his wife, or the woman in your life, the best." And I think that's a very important thing that often gets lost, despite some of the ideology that is out there about women in Islam. So on that note, I'm going to call Dr. Amr Malik, the president of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community in Boston, to give some closing remarks and to finish the session, and then we'll have refreshments.
Thank you. I'll just take a couple of minutes. It's already after 3. So actually, with all this what you've heard, I hope you can differentiate between Islam, the religion, and the politics that surrounds the Muslim people. And unfortunately, the two get mixed up and lead a lot of people in the wrong direction. To that effort, as you have heard, that we've started a lot of, we had made a lot of efforts in humanitarian areas and stuff. Right now, we just started a new effort. It was launched on the 11th of this month. It's called True Islam and the Extremists. And I'd just like to talk to you very briefly about it. It's very simple. It's we are asking everybody, Muslims, non-Muslims, to endorse this campaign. And this campaign clarifies 11 misconceptions about Islam. So we're very clear. So there's no ambiguity. So the True Islam campaign educates all Americans on Islam's true teachings. And these are the 11 points that we are making. And this is on trueislam.com. So if you go on the trueislam.com, those 11 points are there. If you believe that you agree with that, you don't have to be a Muslim. You just endorse it, and we would very much appreciate if you do. Number 1, it says True Islam is a religion that wholly rejects all forms of terrorism. Number 2, believes in non-violent jihad of the self and of the pen. This guy is our front runner. Number 3, believes in the equality, education, and empowerment of women. Number 4, advocates freedom of conscience, religion, and speech. Number 5, advocates for the separation of mosque and state. Number 6, believes in loyalty to your country of residence. Number 7, encompasses the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Number 8, believes in all verses of the Quran and forbids lying. Number 9, recognizes no religion can monopolize salvation. Number 10, believes in the need for unified Muslim leadership. Number 11, wholly rejects the concept of a bloody Messiah. So with that I will finish. I would very much encourage you to go on this website, trueislam.com, and endorse all the points that you agree with. So I would very much appreciate that. thank you so much for coming. It's very kind of you. Hopefully it was helpful. Please, now what we do when we finish is we say a prayer. You may join us or just have a silent moment. So we will start our closing prayer. Amen. There are some refreshments in the side room. You're more than welcome to. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask one on one. Thank you.